Good morning, Rob here with Never Too Old. Today I thought I'd talk a little bit about Isle Royale, how to get there, permits, so on. I am far from an expert. I'm just speaking on my experience. As most of you know, there's two ways to get there, by ferry and seaplane. You can take a ferry from Houghton, Michigan, which would be the Ranger 3, the National Park ferry, or you can take ferry out of Copper Harbor, Michigan, which is the Isle Royale Queen 4. Plus, there is also the option of taking seaplanes out of Houghton, Michigan from the Isle Royale Seaplane Company. As far as permits go, you reach the island, you go to the ranger station, or if you take the seaplane, they have a little tent set up where you fill out your permits. On the Ranger 3, you can fill them out there. You just fill out your permit stating where you're going to camp each night. And it's just a general guideline. I've never stayed at the lodge or the housekeeping cabins, but I hear you should reserve at least a year in advance, if not earlier than that if you can, because they book really fast. My first trip to the island was in August of 2021. I took the Ranger 3 over. It was a nice boat ride, kind of long. This trip was 9 days, and I describe it as my best worst hiking trip ever. And I'll give you a little explanation on that. My first day in, I was hiking to Daisy Farm, and before I made it to 3 Mile, one of my shoulder strap buckles on my backpack broke, so I had to rig that up, and by time I made it just past 3 Mile, my other shoulder strap buckle broke, so I had to rig that up, kind of tie it up, and for the rest of the trip the pack just didn't fit right, and I had neck and back issues the rest of the time. I arrived at Daisy Farm kind of late that day, and it was crowded. You'll run into that risk in August. It's a popular month. The bugs aren't too bad. All the campsites was full. Most of them was being shared already. I managed to find a little spot in some weeds to set up my bivy tent, which I like to call the coffin, and camped there for the night. Not my favorite spot. Daisy Farm's always busy. So day 2, I hiked to Lake Ritchie, knowing that there was algae bloom, so I packed in extra water. The hiking was harder than I figured it would be. I wasn't prepared. I stayed at Lake Ritchie and I loved it. I had the whole place to myself because of the algae bloom. It was so peaceful. It was fantastic. The next day I hiked to West Chicken Bone, and I stopped at Lake Livermore and picked up water because there was also algae bloom at West Chicken Bone and no drinking advisory. So I stayed at West Chicken Bone. That was nice. The next night I went on to McCargo Cove, and by then my back was really killing me. I stayed 2 nights at McCargo Cove. It was kind of cool. I heard 2 moose fighting in the middle of the night. I seen a moose outside of McCargo Cove. I day hiked up to Pine Mountain and over to the copper mine. I really enjoyed McCargo Cove. Then the next day I hiked on, went up to the Greenstone, hiked over to Daisy Farm, dropped down to Daisy Farm, spent the night there. Wasn't quite as crowded that night. I believe I ended up getting a shelter. Did some swimming. It was a lot better than the first stay at Daisy Farm. The next day I hiked to 3 Mile and ended up getting a shelter right on the lake. That was great. Met a few people there and talked with them. There's never a lack of people to talk to at night. I was hiking solo, so that was kind of nice. Next day, I went into Rock Harbor. I ended up getting shelter. I made a deal with some people. It was looking like their ferry was going to be canceled due to weather. That if it was, they could stay in it. And they did. It ended up being 4 of us in that shelter that night. We had a good time. I was able to catch their ferry the next day. My ferry was delayed because of fog. And I believe my takeoff time was supposed to be 9:30 in the morning, 10 o'clock, something like that, and ended up being 4 in the afternoon. So we ended up making it back to Holton Lake during dark, which was kind of neat to see the bridge lit up and stuff. Really enjoyed Rock Harbor. The restaurant was fairly priced for, where it's at. You're going to expect it to be up a little. The store prices really wasn't any higher than some of the little stores in the small towns in the UP. The next trip I made was the following year, August again of 2022. This time I took the seaplane. The night before, I ended up getting in a 3-car accident in Calumet, messing up my vehicle pretty good. Elbow swelling, knee swelling, almost didn't go, but I ended up getting a room in Holton that night at the Super 8, and icing down, and they actually have a little sauna there, and I sat in that. Next morning, swelling was down, so I took the chance. Flew over to Rock Harbor. The flight was awesome. Arrived at Rock Harbor, did the permit process and stuff. From there, I went to 3 Mile. Just took it easy the first day. I ended up getting a shelter, shared it with a guy that night. I did upgrade my backpack and my tent from the year before, so that was a bonus. Second day, went from Rock Harbor to Mosky Basin. Ended up getting a shelter at Mosky. First time there, really enjoyed it. Third day, I hiked from Mosky to Chippewa Harbor. Chippewa Harbor was really nice. Hiked to a little side lake, did some pike fishing. We did have a moose come in behind the shelters just before dark that night, and that was cool. It was a cow moose. Once again, I was hiking solo this trip. The fourth day, I stayed at West Chicken Bone. So from Chippewa Harbor, I hiked to West Chicken Bone. I stopped at Lake Ritchie, did a little pike fishing, caught a few. I made it to West Chicken Bone, set up camp. A few guys came by, and I ended up sharing camp with them. I didn't like the looks of the water, so I hiked back. I think it's a half mile to Lake Livermore, and I filled up my water there. And got enough for the rest of the day and the next morning. Stayed at West Chicken Bone. Another person ended up sharing the campsite with us. So from West Chicken Bone to Hatchet Lake was the fifth night. That hike was a lot of uphill, then downhill into Hatchet Lake. Hatchet Lake was nice. We did find out that day they put a no drinking advisory on West Chicken Bone and Lake Ritchie. So I'm glad I ended up getting my water from Livermore. The next day, day 6, woke up to light rain and a beautiful rainbow and sunrise over Hatchet Lake. For day 6, hiked from Hatchet Lake to South Lake de Soar. Not too bad of a hike. South Lake de Soar was nice. There was a nice swimming beach down by the group sites. That was for day 6. Day 7, I was going to hike from South Lake de Soar to Island Mine. But we was hearing that Island Mine was dry, so I chose to hike from South Lake de Soar to Washington Creek. By then, my knee was bothering me pretty bad. It was swollen up. I have knee issues anyway, and the accident didn't help. So I stayed at Washington Creek. I got there a day earlier than planned. Spent the day there. The next day was the day I was supposed to arrive. Spent another day. So day 8, I stayed at Washington Creek, got a shelter, just rested my knee, relaxed, hung out, seen the northern lights. That was a good time. Day 9, my resupply came in from Minnesota on, I believe it was the Voyager or Sea Hunter. So that was a big relief. My original plans was once I resupplied, I was going to take the Minogue Ridge all the way down to McCargo Cove and my first stop was going to be North Lake de Soar, then Little Todd, then McCargo Cove. But with a full pack and my knee bothering me, I talked to the captain of the boat that brought my resupply in, and I believe for $50 or $60 I was able to catch a ride down to McCargo Cove, which saved my knee a lot of work. And so I got to McCargo Cove and stayed there on day 9. Day 10, I hiked to up Pine Mountain and to Todd Harbor, stayed there. Really enjoyed staying out on the point in the group site. It was real peaceful, great views. Day 11, I hiked back to McCargo Cove and stayed there. I really enjoyed McCargo Cove, so that was cool. From McCargo Cove, I hiked to Lake Ritchie, stopping at Lake Livermore to get water since there's algae bloom at Lake Ritchie. Stayed at Lake Ritchie, had it all to myself like the year before. Really, really enjoyed it there. Seen a moose swimming across the lake. Caught a ton of pike, which was day 14. I hiked to Mosky Basin, stayed there again. I was able to get a shelter, which was nice. I enjoyed it there. On day 14, I hiked to Daisy Farm. I wasn't putting in major miles. I was taking my easy on my knee. Stayed at Daisy Farm. Seen some moose there in the morning. Day 15, I stayed at 3 Mile, but I hiked from Daisy Farm up the Mount Franklin Trail around that way. Stayed at 3 Mile. Day 16, I hiked back to Rock Harbor. I took the Tobin Trail, and that morning I heard some wolves howling, which was cool. And then I stayed at Rock Harbor. Once I arrived at Rock Harbor, I hiked out to Scoville Point. Great little hike, seen some young eagles, which was really cool in the nest. Then came back to Rock Harbor, enjoyed Rock Harbor, swam in Tobin Harbor, had a really good time. Like to note that both years I went, both years there was fires on the island at the same time I was there. Nowhere near them. My last day, day 17, we didn't know if my flight was going to take off on time because of the fog and rain. We lucked out and flight came on time, and it was a great flight back. So that was the 2 trips I took to Isle Royale. The first trip, like I said, I like to tell people that was my best, worst hike ever. And the second trip, I like to tell people that I didn't get to hike the hike I planned, but I got to hike the island gave me. And I think that actually turned out better. And now it gives me a reason to go back to the island and do the Monong Ridge and and some other trails. So hopefully either this summer or next summer I'll be able to get back to the island. If you have any questions, please leave a comment below. If you enjoyed this video, I know that it's kind of all over the place, but if you enjoyed the video, leave a comment below, like, share, subscribe. I'm so close to 100 subscribers right now. And maybe I'll make a few videos on different campgrounds on the island. Once again, you're never too old for adventure, no matter how big or small it may be. We'll catch you on the trail next time. See you later.